Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today is our first edition of Stock Up and Stock Down this training camp session. Now, with 2 weeks of training camp in the books, in the rearview mirror, and the San Francisco 49ers having already played their first preseason game, I thought, what a better time to dissect the roster, discuss whose stocks may be going up, whose players may have a better chance to either start on day one or make the roster once cut down day comes and goes, or other people that may see their stocks plummeting as the preseason progresses. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the show, and let's dive into today's news of the San Francisco 49ers before getting into stock up and stock down, because the San Francisco 49ers have placed defensive end Bradlee Anae on injured reserve, effectively ending his season, which unfortunately sucks. He was going to be a part of this list. However, they also have signed edge rushers Damone Harris and William Bradley King on top of wide receiver Malik Turner. Malik Turner was here a couple years ago, a familiar face for the offense, dealing with so many injuries. But that's kind of it. San Francisco obviously gearing up for joint practices tomorrow with the Las Vegas Raiders and a game on Saturday in Las Vegas too, so needing some healthier bodies. They cut one guy, or they placed one guy on injured reserve, and they signed three more to help bulk up that defense for the next few days. But let's dive in to stock up and stock down after preseason week number 1 and 14 days, 2 weeks of training camp. We have to assess where the roster currently is, and to be pretty upfront with you, a lot more stock ups than I would usually have on my list. Last year, a lot more negative about how the roster was being compiled and who was making the roster as the days went along, but I've been pleasantly surprised with many players on the roster this year through, again, 2 weeks of training camp and the preseason. So without further ado, my first stock up of the show is rookie cornerback Upton Stout, and this mainly comes from a point of view of someone that didn't really know who Stout was coming out of the draft. When I heard he was drafted, I was like, okay. We're going nickelback, guys you can usually find in rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7 that maybe can have a spark for you, but San Francisco and Robert Saleh's defense and their scouts clearly knew what they were doing, because Upton Stout has just been a tremendous player so far. He's currently injured, but that doesn't seem to be too serious. He's supposed to be back by this weekend, if not early next week, so some good news there for him. But thus far, he's outplayed Trey Brown. He's outplayed Dallas Flowers. He's outplayed Darrell Luter Jr. He's even outplayed guys enough to be taking first-team reps, and without saying he's won the job, they're essentially telling him, or telling us, that Upton Stout may have already won the starting nickelback job this offseason, and I think it's every bit deserved. Obviously, we'll see if he can hold on to that job when the season begins and as the training camp and preseason days continue, but he's looked so good, sticky in coverage. He has shown he can hold up in run defense, and I cannot wait to watch him make his debut, whether it be this Saturday against the Raiders or next weekend against the Los Angeles Chargers. But Upton Stout may be having one of the best training camps of anybody, whether it be good or on offense or defense. He's just been tremendous thus far, a big surprise for someone like myself who, again, didn't know who he was really coming out of Western Kentucky and didn't expect him to be in the running for the starting nickelback job as early as he has been thus far. The other stock up before I get to my first stock down is another rookie, that being free safety Marques Sigle. Not to dunk on myself for a second, but I didn't know how to pronounce his name when he got drafted. I had the audio down low on the TV, so I wasn't sure, and it was late on day 3. Didn't know who he was. And when they drafted Marques Sigle, I thought it was Marques Sigle or Marques Sigle. What a fool I was. He has come on the scene and proven practice after practice, had an amazing preseason debut, went out there, was near the football consistently, like Upton Stout, getting first-team reps, has jumped players like Ji'Ayir Brown, Richie Grant, and others in that safety room for first-team reps. Saleh's praising him every single day. Shanahan's praising him every single day, too, it seems like. They got a guy that I don't know if I would consider him to be like Jimmy Ward, but he can do things like that in a way where San Francisco hasn't had that roaming free safety, the guy that can, play deep downfield, has makeup speed, but also can be a great tackler. Like they've had Ji'Ayir Brown, they've had Talanoa Hufanga, they've had Deshaun Gibson, guys that you like a lot, but don't have the same skill set as Marques Sigle. I think there is still some things to be desired in coverage, but a very big stock up for me as early as we are through the first week of preseason. I'm hoping that continues for him. If he continues to flash in the next 2 weeks and Ji'Ayir Brown doesn't pick things up, Marques Sigle will be this team's starting free safety against the Seattle Seahawks in week 1 of the regular season. And that brings us to our first stock down, a guy that I talked about in yesterday's show at the very end, a guy that we all had high hopes for coming out of Penn State, a guy that had an amazing rookie season in that second half of 2023, a guy that would have been amongst the group that had one of the biggest plays of the Super Bowl, but since then has been kind of a ghost, and not in a good way. He's been non-existent in pass coverage, non-existent as a run defender. He had off-season surgery, but our first stock down is Ji'Ayir Brown, the safety from Penn State, coming into his third season, hoping for a bounce back. There's been some days where that's the case, but otherwise a pretty piss-poor outings for Ji'Ayir Brown in year number 3. I think he makes the roster. I think David Lombardi had a proposed trade of moving him to the New York Jets to reunite him with Steve Wilks, who he saw his best season under 2 years ago, which I wouldn't be against, especially if Malik Mustafa's ahead of schedule. But as of right now, him being on the roster, Ji'Ayir Brown has not been very good for this team. Didn't play in the first preseason game, kind of nursing that ankle injury still in which he had surgery on, but a very big stock down for me. He was just Swiss cheese against George Kittle in practice yesterday. Got beat 3 times, 2 times for touchdowns. Not great for him. I'm hoping that once he gets actual live reps in a game, maybe we see him play better. That same thing happened for Marques Sigle, who was having a fine training camp. It wasn't really turning heads, but the pads come on, the game time comes in, against Denver, and then oh my goodness, he flashes big time. So I'm hoping that can happen for Ji'Ayir Brown, but if not, and if nothing changes, he's much closer towards the roster bubble than making the roster, in my opinion. Maybe that leads to a trade, but right now I think he makes the roster. However, not a great camp from him, and for a guy where that 2023 draft class looks really bad now, with Cam Latu being cut, Jake Moody being very inconsistent, and Ji'Ayir Brown, after a really good start to his career, has found himself in the dumpster, if you will. So Ji'Ayir Brown gets our first stock down of today's show, which brings us back to the stock up. And I'm going to pair the next 2 guys together because they, to me, are a unit on the offensive line where San Francisco has so many holes, so many questions. They have so many concerns as to, are guys going to stay healthy? Can guys be out there at a consistent rate? Do you really trust players like Nick Zakelj and Matt Hennessy and other guys in that room? Do you really want Spencer Burford having to share left guard and left tackle reps? Do you want Dillard playing guard and tackle? That doesn't make much sense. So it's really good to see rookies stepping up. That's going to take up a big space of our stock up in today's show. Already had 2 of them, and Upton Stout and Marques Sigle. Have 2 more right now with Drew Moss, a UDFA this year, and Connor Colby, a 7th round pick. Both of those guys, I think, again, hadn't done poorly. Drew Moss has flashed a lot more in practice than Connor Colby has, but once game time came against Denver, their play picked up. And those are guys you want to keep around. Those are guys that can answer when the moment is big, when you have guys that are unproven and guys that are rookies that, may or may not get a chance to prove themselves during training camp when they're with the third team who doesn't get many reps on practice days. When the game time comes and they're out there at a consistent rate and they're proving themselves, they're good in run coverage, they're good in pass coverage. In fact, PFF has Connor Colby and Drew Moss as the best offensive linemen that played against Denver. They have the two highest offensive grades, a 77.8 and a 77.3 for Colby and Moss. In regards to pass blocking, Drew Moss an impressive in a team-leading 83.7 pass blocking grade, and Connor Colby a 78.6. The run blocking grades are also equally as impressive, a 73.3 for Connor Colby and a 71.9, basically a 72 for Drew Moss. And now we're seeing with Ben Bartch being injured, not exactly sure when he'll be back. It could be serious, could be very minor, but in his absence, it wasn't Nick Zakelj getting first-team left guard reps. It was Connor Colby. He moved from second-team and third-team right guard to first-team left guard. That is a massive, massive showing of trust from Kyle Shanahan, from Chris Forrester, the offensive line coach, and for Drew Moss, a guy that, the interior depth of this offensive line is not proven yet, or they just don't know who it'll be. Nick Zakelj finds himself further down the list than Drew Moss and Connor Colby do, and those rookies are stepping up and standing out really early in their rookie season. So for a lot of the talking, I think a justified portion of hate from the fan base at times in regards to just how, or the lack of money, funds, and draft picks put into the offensive line in recent years. Connor Colby and Drew Moss are two shining, I guess you can say, silver linings right now. Obviously, it's not the regular season. Obviously, there's no playoff games being played and whatnot, but thus far, you're seeing two young offensive linemen step up in the absence of some veterans you assume would make the roster. And, Ben Bartch's job, for all the talk of him being good in that one game in the snow against Buffalo, which he was, he's never healthy. So we may see Connor Colby or Drew Moss a lot sooner than we expected to this season. And in a very small sample size, about 14 days or so, they have looked, competent, and you're seeing the coaching staff reward them. So very good for those two guys. Lori Matthews in the YouTube comments says this: would be nice to have a surprise on the offensive line. Need a couple rookies to step up there. I think the same thing kind of happened last year of nobody really thought Dominic Puni would start to begin the year. Guys go down. He had a tremendous rookie campaign, and you're hoping that while nobody gets hurt, that younger guys can be a surprise, kind of like Dominic Puni was last year, which he looked like an all-pro for a lot of the year until late before his body wore down. But if Connor Colby and Drew Moss can be even 75% of Dominic Puni last year, San Francisco's offensive line depth or even a starter role could be in a much better spot than we thought walking in to the season. But these things will fluctuate too, right? Connor Colby can have an amazing first week or 2.5 weeks of preseason and training camp and then plummet against the Raiders this weekend. So it's why I'm doing it now. We'll do it again next week, but right now those two guys are certainly shining early on in their first seasons. Joseph Ernberg says here in the YouTube comments, Niners are a team full of nobody old men, 5-12. Well, Joseph, talk about a big stock down from you, brother. I can tell you're trolling because your next comment says this: led by a quarterback who's not even top 32 in the league. See, you had me in the first half, they're an older team. A lot of guys are unproven, but you're saying Brock Purdy's not top 32. In fact, I would even push back if you said Brock Purdy wasn't top 12 or 13 in the league. So, Joseph coming in hot with a big Debbie Downer on today's show, a big stock down for the San Francisco 49ers from our friend Joseph Ernberg in the comments, who Lori Matthews calls a ray of sunshine. Let's keep things moving, unfortunately, on the downward trend, and let's move to Nick Zakelj, who I kind of already talked about. He was getting first-team reps when Ben Bartch was missing the first few days of training camp on the NFI list, and now Ben Bartch came back, and Zakelj has been getting consistent left guard second-team reps and backup center reps, but Ben Bartch gets hurt again. The assumption is, well, Nick Zakelj moves right back up like he was to begin training camp. Not the case. He has been demoted to second-team right guard and third-team backup center, which that may change again. These things are always, these things will always fluctuate as time goes on and as the preseason / training camp dates progress. But Nick Zakelj had a really bad preseason game. We just gushed about the PFF scores, for Connor Colby and for Drew Moss. You go to Nick Zakelj. He had a he was so bad, they didn't even give him a pass blocking grade, but a 54.3 grade against the pass and a 42.5 run blocking grade, so a really bad day for Nick Zakelj, a guy who San Francisco scouted for like 6 years at college. They made it a point to say, we know you guys don't know who he is, but we know who he is. It's not worked out. This was definitely one of their big reaches, albeit it was day 3. You have to consider, why keep Nick Zakelj when you could have kept Jared Kingston last year? I get it, he has center guard flexibility. So does Matt Hennessy. So does Dominic Pooney. I'm sure at some point, so does Drew Moss. There are so many guys that can do what Nick Zakelj does, and at this point in time at a much higher rate. So Nick Zakelj getting demoted, Nick Zakelj playing poorly, that is a combination that leads to a massive, big stock down from me on the first edition of the show in these preseason. But man, Nick Zakelj has not been great, but in fact really bad. The anchor is bad. Like compared to Drew Moss and Connor Colby, he looks like he's a rookie, which is not what you want from veteran players you're hoping can give you instant depth at two key positions, that being left guard and center. But again, a lot of games to go, that being 2 of them, and a lot of practices to go. Nick Zakelj can hopefully come out against the Raiders and surprise us and maybe end on a high note, because again, the more the merrier. I want competition, but Nick Zakelj is not giving it to players like Connor Colby and like Drew Moss. But let's go back to a stock up, because we have to get to the linebacker room. And Tatum Bethune, a guy who I was much higher on coming out of Florida State than many were. San Francisco had him in for a ton of visits leading up to the 2024 draft, but he was a guy I assumed, at least on day 1, he wasn't going to start. He didn't belong even near the starting lineup, but I figured special teamer, he can give you something in year 1, and it wasn't the case. It took him a year, but right now through training camp in the preseason, Tatum Bethune, he had an awesome preseason debut this past weekend against the Broncos. He was making tackles on third downs. He was stuffing dudes closer to the line of scrimmage. He was securing tackles where one guy we'll get to in a second wasn't doing so at linebacker. Bethune was cleaning things up. He was patient in his lanes. He wasn't rushing out of his lanes or avoiding his assignments. He was doing everything you want from a second-year linebacker on this defense. I'm not sure if that's a Nick Sorensen to Robert Saleh defensive mindset adjustment and a coordinator change. Maybe that's why, but Bethune has certainly taken a bigger step in year 2. Looks more confident out there, looks bigger out there on the football field, moving around, making plays, and there was a little bit of an injury scare there for him, but he seems healthy, hasn't missed a practice, so big a stock up for him. I don't think he'll be in the running to start to begin the season. You have Fred, you have D. Winters, and you have Luke Gifford, but I think Bethune is pushing on that door a lot sooner than we think he will, where I can see Bethune pushing Gifford out of the lineup on maybe base downs or on like when they go through linebacker sets this season. I don't think it'll happen early, but if he continues to have a good preseason and good training camp dates and joint practices, Bethune, to me, is climbing up that depth chart. I think he's past Curtis Robinson. He's already ahead of Jalen Graham. I think he's ahead of Nicholas Martin by a long way. But Bethune may be this team's third best linebacker at season's end, and may already be now, but the depth chart may not reflect that until a month and a half in to the regular season. But a big stock up for Tatum Bethune as the San Francisco Giants lose 11-1 today. That season's over. That sucks. Put a fork in him, but let's go back to the YouTube comments because Papa J says, "What's up, Sterling? What's good, Niner fam? Like and subscribe." Rob D also in the YouTube chat. Thank you guys for being here. And Joseph Ernberg, again, hitting the nail right on the head with our next stock down, because as Tatum Bethune climbs the linebacker depth chart, we are seeing a young player plummet on it, depending on where your expectations were this year for rookie linebacker at Oklahoma State, Nicholas Martin. Joseph says here in the YouTube chat, Nick Martin needs a redshirt year, in my opinion. Yeah. There was the consensus that the pick for Nicholas Martin was a massive reach in the third round. And I was very quick to put on Instagram and Twitter, like, hey, this is the defense's version of that third round wide receiver or running back. I didn't know what they were thinking, and it's no indictment on Nicholas Martin. Nicholas Martin has the speed. He has the electric play style you want in a Robert Saleh wide nine defense, but he just is he's so wild and uncontrollable that he needs a season where it's almost like you want to put horse blinders on him and say, focus on one thing at a time. Like, take things slow. How do you slow yourself down? I do like the prospects of Nicholas Martin, but by no means do I want him anywhere near the field, as a starter at least, in year one. He has so much room to grow, and to his, to be fair to him, he didn't play it almost at all last year, so that was his first game back in a long time, almost a year and a half removed from an injury. So there is some forgiveness involved. Maybe his stock goes way up after these weekend events against the Raiders, but he was downright terrible against the Denver Broncos. Again, going to the stats against the Broncos in that preseason game. You look at the numbers here in the PFF grades. Nicholas Martin overall had a 31.6 grade per PFF. That is the third lowest on the entire team, just ahead of Michael Dwumfour and Jalen Graham. A better run defense showing at 54.4, but had one of the worst tackling grades on the entire team, a 26.5 tackling grade. He missed 2 tackles on the day, only had 3 to himself. Just not a great day by all. He also wasn't good in coverage, a 30.24 grade, or a 30.2 grade, excuse me. A really, really, really bad day. Again, you wanted to just tighten those reins, kind of bring him back in and almost tell him, look, you have all the physical traits to be really good. Like, really good. Like, your body, your makeup is there. But the mental stuff, playing games, seeing things slow down, that needs some time. So it certainly feels like Nicholas Martin does need to play a lot the next 2 preseason games for sure. But I think he will probably take the Tatum Bethune route this year. Not play much. If he does, it'll be on special teams. But I think, even and this is the great thing this year. Yes, you have Robert Saleh in there to help out the defense, but you also have Brant Boyer that does share some of those similarities in coaching style and mentality to Saleh. So you have kind of a defensive coordinator as your special teams coordinator as well. So there is some give and take, and there also is some similarities there. So I think having Martin be on special teams more than not, that if he can just sit in, kind of sit in the back and whatnot, I really think Nicholas Martin can grow quickly, but this year, not the case. Redshirt him. Let him sit, have him be that 6th linebacker on your roster in case of emergencies only, and let him grow as time progresses. But Papa J here in the YouTube chat, really great comparison, and somebody already on San Francisco's team, now starting for San Francisco in year 3, that being D. Winters. D. Winters, who, was somebody that had a lot of potential. He was that one guy we all said was, diamond in the rough. That's their late round steal. And the last 2 years, it certainly hasn't felt that, but you've seen progression from him year after year to a point of now he's out there balling on defense and earning a starting job. So, that to me is a great comparison where, again, put the horse blinders on and say, but let's settle down, kid. We'll get it figured out, but, step by step. We'll take things slow with you because we love what you can do. But, again, I do think it still was a reach in the 3rd round, especially knowing the holes on the offensive line and defense. But time will tell with Nicholas Martin, probably more than anybody in this draft class, more than Michael and Alfred Collins and CJ West and Upton, Stout and those guys. Nicholas Martin may need the most time to get his feet back under him and kind of get his mentals figured out. But like the prospects, however, really big stock down from Nicholas Martin after the preseason game against Denver, which brings us back to a stock up. Gonna hit 2 of them back-to-back for you. Kalia Davis and Sebastian Valdez. I know PFF wasn't exactly, if I can see here, wasn't exactly kind to Kalia Davis, giving him a 40 defensive grade and a 46.3 run defense grade and a 49.3 pass rushing grade. But I think Kalia Davis, even if the PFF score doesn't flash it or tell you it, I do think Kalia Davis is going to earn a starting job this year, barring injury from somebody else, or maybe if Gibbons comes back before the season begins, although I don't think it's going to happen. I think that Kalia Davis has performed well. He's healthy. He's flashing speed. I think pairing him with a player like Alfred Collins or like CJ West to begin the season might be beneficial. I would not be shocked to see San Francisco have, Kalia Davis and Alfred Collins start week 1, or maybe that be the second group, and then Jordan Elliott and CJ West be the next group, and so on and so forth. I think it all depends on who they want to pair with who. I think having a veteran next to a rookie will certainly help them. So if it was me, I would pair Kalia Davis with Alfred Collins. Obviously, those guys mix in and mix out continually, but I do think that Kalia Davis had a very good game, despite what PFF says. He stayed in his lanes, made a few tackles, flashed some speed, chased down a few ball carriers, and made some nice plays. And he's also been having a good training camp, so don't let one preseason game just condemn a player. I think it's really unfair. I won't condemn Nicholas Martin to you being a bad pick overall, but it's why these things fluctuate like the stock market. Things go up, things go down, and Kalia Davis, to me, is certainly going up. What is it, year 4 now for him? So a contract year for him. Needs a big season, and hopefully this is a year where the defensive line for San Francisco on the interior can take a step up of younger guys who they liked in previous years and haven't lived up to their potential. Maybe this year can be that for Kalia Davis. The other guy, though, Sebastian Valdez, I think, getting probably the biggest amount of praise from Kyle Shanahan, where when your head coach tells the media and the fan base that of anybody on the entire roster on defense, that Sebastian Valdez, UDFA from Washington, has flashed the most in a group that has, Chase Lucas having a great preseason game, D. Winters and Nicholas Bosa, and you having Marques Sigle and Upton Stout and Jacob Robinson, who also had a pretty good game against Denver and really nice, training camp sessions in recent weeks. To hear Sebastian Valdez get that amount of praise, to me, while it doesn't lock him in for a roster spot, it certainly gives you hope that they are not going to let him pass or even worry about passing through waivers. He was tied for second on the team in run stops against the Broncos. He had a 71 .0 tackling grade and a 59.6 defense grade, That was if I can tell, that was the second highest amongst interior defensive linemen. So a really big day for Sebastian Valdez. And yes, Rob D says here, Hulk Smash. That is the nickname for Sebastian Valdez. He's got the speed. He has the power. A guy that I think, funny enough, flew under the radar, but San Francisco at this point in time in their organization, their franchise, they're kind of hitting the reset button, right? Not a full reset, but kind of a half reset, retooling, if you will. And they are probably more open than ever, really, since 2018, maybe 19, to guys that are young and, really unproven, and guys that are UDFAs beating out guys that they signed in free agency or they signed or drafted early in the draft. So I think Sebastian Valdez has the inside track to a job if he can continue this, but a great showing against the Broncos. And when you get that praise from Kyle Shanahan, who doesn't like to praise rookies, of the guy that flashes the most, to hear Dominic Pooney talk about Sebastian Valdez saying, again, he's Hulk Smash, he has the strength, he has the speed, all that stuff, that's a really good sign. It does, that is what you want to hear from younger players that you probably wouldn't expect to get that praise, but I do like, and I really am intrigued by Sebastian Valdez as the preseason goes on. That brings me to my final stock down, that being Trey Brown. So 2 Browns on the stock down list this week. And this has lesser to do with Trey Brown's performance in the preseason game, because overall, had a really nice day against Denver. He was the highest defensive graded player. He had 2 run stops. He had 3 tackles. He had an amazing coverage game. A 93.4 coverage grade, was the best on the entire team. Was the only guy above an 82 run defense or pass coverage grade. So great showing from him. And also steady tackler, good in run defense. The big kind of knock on him is that, like Nick Zakelj, who although isn't having a great training camp in preseason, Trey Brown has somewhat been demoted to the second and third team nickel role and some outside corner too. And I'm not sure if that's San Francisco wanting to see some unproven guys play with the first team. Maybe San Francisco kind of already has checked off Trey Brown being on the roster and running with the 1s or 2s, and they like him enough to feel comfortable dropping him down on the depth chart to allow Chase Lucas and Upton Stout to grow and maybe take a higher role in preseason to see what they're made of. But usually that's not the case. So to see Trey Brown just plummet from all the way from the first team defense running with the outside nickel room to now playing third team, I don't think he'll get cut by any means, but rather shocking to a point of, it just makes you wonder what's going on there. Is it this overconfidence, in him to give other guys a chance, or is it like, hey, Trey Brown's not playing great, which Brown was having a really good beginning to training camp and has since kind of dropped off somewhat, but I think San Francisco, I'd be more open to San Francisco retaining Trey Brown over Darrell Luter Jr., who's having a really bad training camp and a really bad preseason. So that is what I believe to be my final stock down, unless I surprise myself, and I am going to surprise myself. But Darrell Luter Jr. actually gets my final stock down. I really like Darrell Luter Jr. I had high hopes for him out of South Alabama a couple of years ago, and I think San Francisco did too. He is slowly, though, creeping towards one of the more what-if categories of recent draft picks, of guys that got hurt early, were never healthy. When he has been healthy, maybe outside of the Super Bowl, he's performed at an okay rate. There's been some highs, there's been some lows, but he's a young player, a guy that you expect that to happen to. But I remember his first game back, whether it was 2 years ago or last year. I'm pretty sure it was 2 years ago when they were in the Super Bowl. His first game back was against Seattle, the night they won the division when Brock Purdy had broken ribs. I'm pretty sure he made a return touchdown saving tackle on special teams. So there have been signs of small flashes here or there, but he's never put it together at a consistent rate. He's finally healthy, which is great to see, but he just, again, it's just not there. He's a guy that you are rooting for to get better because you want a 25, 26-year-old cornerback that's a bigger body guy that can go out there and, he had a great PBU against Cortland Sutton in the end zone against Denver, but, he kind of pairs that with a really boneheaded mistake, allowing their tight end to be wide open, and it's kind of, I guess you can say, just evade his own coverage or whatnot. It just really feels like he's so far behind, it's really hard to catch back up. I hope he plays the next 2 preseason games. I want to see him go out there and flush it and hopefully, play better. Because San Francisco, for all the the good guys they have in that room, Renardo Green and Lenore and Stout and other guys, Dallas Flowers, you can never have too many good cornerbacks. And San Francisco in recent seasons has had to rely on the 4th or 5th guy in that room to play down the stretch. So I'm hoping that Darrell Luter Jr. can grow quickly and kind of get his head back on straight and make some plays. But so far, a big stock down from me throughout the first week, 2.5 weeks of the preseason training camp dates. NiderGoat16 has commented like 3 or 4 times, and I see you, and he says, Alfred Collins, stock down.
You don't technically need this car. You say that out loud to yourself. You say, I have no space. You say, I'm just looking. Then you click. Then you zoom in on photo number 87 and whisper, oh no. Then you text a friend, the one who always enables you. You say to yourself, this is the last one, knowing it is not. You don't need this car. But maybe, just maybe, this car needs you. Bring a trailer. It's never just a car.
I would not say stock down for Alfred Collins. I get why you want to say that. I think, again, I was not too kind to Alfred Collins, and I haven't been too kind to him in the recent weeks, whether it was the preseason game reaction, which I didn't think he was great in, but there was better stuff that I saw after watching the film and watching Johnny Dells on YouTube. But I do think that Alfred Collins, missing the entire OTAs, missing the entire rookie minicamp, missing a part of training camp, I think he's a work in progress for sure, but I think, he's a bigger body guy that can take up space and eat room, and that stuff's still valuable for you. There are so many guys in the NFL that can't do that stuff and play the interior. So if Collins, who may not have a single sack this year, who is going to be, a higher run defender and, it's a guy that is not going to fill up the box score. He does need time, but I think he can still be valuable to the roster. And I think we saw that against the Broncos where, it wasn't a great game by any means, but he ate up space, took on double teams, did what you want from a space-eating interior defensive lineman. So I would say it's kind of in the middle of you want a lot more from him, but what you're getting isn't necessarily bad from Collins. So not a stock down, not a stock up. I also didn't include guys like Ricky Pearsall in here, on guys that are first-round picks, guys that you would expect a lot more from. So no Ricky Pearsall in here. No CJ West. Maybe it's my own opinion of him, but I thought he was going to be probably one of the best picks of the draft class, and I think he's lived up to that so far for me. So an adequate stock of him, in my own opinion. But I think that Ricky and CJ West and guys like that, to me, they don't belong on this list because I expect great or good things from them. As my dog howls. What are you doing? Hey, buddy, what are you doing? You're good. My dog out there saying, yeah, Ricky should play on Sunday or Saturday. But anyways, let's get back to my final stock up of the show. And that is Chase Lucas, a guy that had a tremendous week 1 of the preseason against the Denver Broncos. He was blitzing out of the secondary as a nickelback. He almost had more sacks, but plays were blown dead. He had 6 run stops, led the entire team, played the entire game. He was great in coverage, had a big PBU against the first team offense of Denver. He had 3 quarterback hurries. He had 8 tackles total. He was good in coverage, a good pass rusher, one of the best tacklers on the entire team. He was the highest rated defensive or run defense player on the entire team. I think that Chase Lucas, while I'm not going to cement him as earning a roster spot, I do think that Chase Lucas has at least put himself in position to get a spot over Darrell Luter Jr. I think that kind of 6th and 5th cornerback role is open, where you have Lenore, you have Renardo Green, you have Upton Stout, you have Dallas Flowers, and then there's Trey Brown, Darrell Luter Jr., Siren Neal, and Chase Lucas. And, I think Chase Lucas has played better, at least recently, than most of those guys. I would probably make it a tie of Trey Brown and Chase Lucas, but you're in a point where Chase Lucas may push guys like Darrell Luter Jr. or Siren Neal off the roster, and maybe kind of fighting with Trey Brown as that backup nickelback behind Upton Stout. So great showing from him. And I think an overall really strong couple weeks of practice for him, now running with the first team at times with Upton Stout currently injured. So Chase Lucas, one of the biggest risers, may have the biggest stock of them all. He was a practice squad guy. He was a special teamer, and that's it. And all of a sudden now looks like a guy that can actually give San Francisco some meaningful snaps. He'll probably play in the preseason game against Raiders, and hopefully flashes again. Again, you can never have enough good cornerbacks. But I think a fitting end to today's show is to go into the YouTube comments right here. A very important question that I think most people need answered, because I myself am a San Francisco Giants fan, and my wife is a Los Angeles Dodgers fan. And while that does sometimes create some friction where maybe I care more about it than she does, this season notwithstanding for obvious reasons, but having to watch her team win the World Series last year brought me immense pain because I hate the Dodgers. But Joseph Ehrenberg asks here, Sterling, my girlfriend is a Cowboys fan. Should I dump her? Joseph, leave her today. Leave her tomorrow. Leave her yesterday. End the relationship. Run for the hills, brother. Anyone that sports the Dallas Cowboys star that is not from the state of Texas, Oklahoma, or the surrounding states needs to never find love in their entire life. No. Come to my house, live with me and my dog and my wife. We have an extra bedroom for you here in our house. Come stay with us. Escape that relationship today. A Niner fan and a Dallas Cowboys fan is a lot worse than Dodgers Giants. It's much worse than Lakers and Celtics. It is the worst thing you can ever do. I'd rather you marry, date, whatever you want to do with the Seattle Seahawks fan than the Dallas Cowboys fan. In fact, this goes back to my roots. When I was a couple weeks old, maybe a couple months old, out of the hospital, my uncle, who lives in Oklahoma, was in California visiting, and he put a Dallas Cowboy jersey on me. And my father came home irate, livid, no, hell no. My kid's never wearing the Dallas Cowboy star. My father would rather have me be a Raider fan than the Dallas Cowboys fan. He'd rather have me don the silver and black than wear the Dallas Cowboys star. It is a no in our house, no as a San Francisco 49er fan. So, Joseph, to answer your question, run for the hills, brother, and don't look back. It'll be 28 weeks later, where there's zombies all in the house, the infected's in the house, and the guy's like, my wife and kids are in there, but see you later. I gotta live myself. I'm out of here, brother. Do the same thing. Get out of there. End the relationship. And if she's watching, honey, what are you doing? What are you doing? I get it. Niner fans are better than Dallas Cowboy fans and all that, but deep down there's some hurt you just can't get over. You gotta move on. Joseph, perfect here. I'm calling her now. Thanks, Sterling. Joseph, what a great way to end the show. Papa J says here, Sterling, you married a Dodger fan? You're a smart woman. Oh, you married a smart woman? No, I didn't. She married, if anything, I'm dumb. No, but she's great. She's great. I have agreed to my wife to say, look, you can be a Dodger fan. That's fine. I can live 162 games out of the year, you being a Dodger fan. But I need one thing from you. You have to become a San Francisco 49er fan. And to that, she has kind of become. Mainly because of Jimmy Garoppolo when he was handsome and on the rosters. That kind of helped her out. But she loves Nick Bosa, mainly for obvious reasons. She loves Brock Purdy. She doesn't like George Kittle. Thinks he's so funny, but thinks he's kind of scary looking, which I don't agree, but that's just myself. But loves Fred Warner, thinks he's like the most handsome guy in the entire world. But that was the agreement. You can be a Dodger fan, but you have to become a San Francisco 49er fan. But that's where we're going to end today's show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Leave us that 5-star audio podcast review. Follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. And you can go ahead and use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. I want to thank Rob D, Joseph Ernberg, Tommy Huxley, Papa J, Niner Goat 16, Kawachipto, Lori Matthews also in here somewhere. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, hopefully you like, share, subscribe, leave us that review. And until next time, joint practices tomorrow against the Las Vegas Raiders. Right back here for a reaction and recap of that day. But until then, my name is Sterling Bennett, and as always, stay faithful.